huge, like rock concerts, rave parties, political rallies, that sense of communitas, right? So there's these three levels of it, each one better than the previous.
So when I think about sports teams achieving that, it makes sense to me. But I also know that they're spending, 5, 6, 7 days a week practicing, training, improving their physical bodies individually and together as a team. So there's conscious and active engagement and effort. And they may not be saying, I want to get into flow, but they're doing everything that they can to be the best. And that seems to me like a conscious effort. So what is the difference?
Well, the difference is, and you sort of touched on this a few minutes ago, is that flow requires an intense focus on what you're doing. And typically with athletes in particular, or somebody that's in that area, they're doing that because they love it. I mean, crazy love it. There is nothing else more important in the world than playing in that sport, being on that team, doing that thing. And so because they love it so much, and flow requires intense focus, when you do something you love, you don't have to think about focusing on it. Focus happens automatically. And so there's nothing in your way there. So when you said earlier, like doing what you love so much, that's key. Like, I don't know if you can get if you'll get the kind of focus if you are not doing something that you're really fired up about.
Well, I'm trying to think about my own experiences and how, there's a lot of us out here who want to write a book, believe that we have a book in us. I've written 2. My most recent in particular was what I would think it could relate to an experience of flow, in that I had I would set aside the time. I had a burning need and desire to do this book, this last one. And I also, writing it just felt like it flowed out of me, right? It was not a chore. It was, I would be just completely engrossed and engaged with it when I was writing. I love that time. I would tune out everything else. And I didn't sit there to say, I'm going to go get into flow or download a book through me. I'm saying, this is my time. I'm going to write. I'm going to give myself to this project and be all in with my book. Does that feel or sound like what we're talking about in terms of that process?
Yes, I would say, because you were able to access that because you do love the writing and you were so passionate about what you were writing. Where we get into trouble is when we start, the second we get excited about something and you get that kind of the dopamine hit in the brain where you're like, ooh, that feels good, I'm excited about that. And in my experience, so often the very next thing that happens is all of the reasons how it, why it won't work and why I can't do it. And I'll start advocating and talking myself out of it. Like, oh, I really want to write a book. I love the idea of writing a book. Oh, but it takes too long. I don't have the focus. I'm not a good writer. I don't have the discipline. Like, all of these things come up, right? So it's about learning to untell these stories, because ultimately that's all they are. These are just stories. And as one of my mentors said, if you're going to tell a story, it might as well be a good one.
If only I had one.
Right? So just tell yourself, I could totally write. I think one of the things, there's a concept that we work with called, we have an acronym FISA, full investment with zero attachment. Right? We let go of the attachment of the outcome, right? And I'm just going to write because I love what I'm writing about. I'm going to write because this feels good. And the next thing you know, you have a book.
Wow. I mean, that just feels so powerful to me. And, I look at the 2 books I've written, and the first one felt a lot more like a chore. I was determined to finish it. And people always ask me, what did it take? And I said, I didn't let perfect get in the way of the good. And I got something done. That was important to me at the time. And it was successful in spite of my peculiar posture around it. But this last book was the one where I just never gave any consideration to any of that. I wasn't thinking about, am I going to be perfect? I was thinking about telling this story and getting this out into the world. It was a very different engagement.
Yeah, that perfect is a couple of things. Jen Sincero, who wrote "You Are a Badass," just irreverent, lovely author. I love her style, and she says it so beautifully. Done is better than perfect. And
Right.
in my experience, the problem with perfect is that, number one, it's an imaginary stick with very hazy measurement marks on it. It's like, oh yeah, it has to be perfect, and okay, define perfect. I can't really. It's this fuzzy sort of idea. I don't know what perfect is. I just know I haven't achieved it yet. Well, if you don't know what it is, like, just logically, how can you tell me you haven't achieved it? And then we'll start, moving the goalpost. Well, it's not perfect until this happens. Okay, then we do that. And well, but it's still not perfect until that happens. Oh, okay, then we do that. Well, it's still not. It's like, look, we can do this forever, or we can get this done.
Right?
Right.
That is, but will we have achieved, in your perspective and expertise, a level of flow to get there? Or it will have, go ahead.
I was going to say, it just depends. Like I said, if you can set the conditions for yourself, then I would say that again, getting into flow isn't the goal. It's the result. It's the result of setting those conditions for yourself, and setting those conditions and adhering to them. That's the goal, right?
So how might one do that in starting a business or expanding a business?
Well, you need to be deeply connected to what it is you're doing and what's driving it. What makes this important to you? I would say there's actually kind of a mission statement that we write, and in the work that I do, and it's a very simple statement, and it's very vague, but it's like, I am doing this for this reason, because it means this to me. And then we look at the shadow side of that. In Jungian psychology, as you know, we have the shadow aspect, right? And if we invert that sentence, by not doing this, this doesn't happen, and this is the end result. And so we understand what we're running to and what we're running from at the same time, because that gives us a lot of charge and a lot of energy. No, here's why this is so important, that I'm going for it, and here's what happens if I don't, right? And so it really is about understanding what it is about this that lights you up so much that you are willing to give yourself to it and live in for that purpose.
Wow. Well, I think that is so powerful, and it gives us all something to get our heads around, because we got to start somewhere, right? It has to start in the head first. Am I wrong about that?
Well, I'd say it has to start in the heart or in the soul, right?
Well, okay.
Wherever you
Never
feel
mind.
it,
Right.
and because I think as an entrepreneur in particular, we have to remember, well, we don't have to do anything. I think it's helpful to remember that this isn't about us. Like, this is a thing in us that's coming through us for a reason. And the idea that, who am I to do this is the same as who are you not to, right? If you call it God, universe, source, whatever, right? Put this in you for a reason, and you are the chosen vehicle, to the conduit for this thing. Then it's not about you. It's about the thing. And entrepreneurs, in my experience, are very dedicated to their thing.
Yes. Well, and we could do this all day long. And thankfully, you're going to come back next week. So we're super excited about that. But what would be your very best advice to give to our listeners to be able to at least start practicing something?
I think the first thing is to shift your inner script, because what I've learned is that when you start talking to yourself instead of listening to yourself, you'll find the script changes dramatically. When you're listening to yourself, you hear, here's why I can't do it, this doesn't work, I can't because, and advocating for our limitations. When you take full accountability for your inner script and start actively talking to yourself, it's very hard to tell yourself you're a piece of crap, right? It's like, look, you can do this. And what if you're wrong? All these things I can't because, yeah, I get it. It makes perfect sense. It's totally logical. And what if you're wrong?
Well, I can't think of anything more powerful than those simple words. And I am so grateful that you are getting to come back and we're going to hear more from Chris King. In the meantime, thank you so much for being here today and sharing these powerful ideas and possibilities for us.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to being on with you again.